Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we've got some gameplay footage of Operation Lockdown, or sorry, Operation Locker in Battlefield 4, or as I like to know it as Operation Rage Cage, because it's just this giant, uh, cluster of just, choke points and nobody can get through. But, that's not the topic of today's video. Today's video I wanted to go through something that was not at all trivial to me throughout the life, which was making friends. And, I want to kind of go over what my background was, throughout my life and how I went about making friends and, what the difference between acquaintances are and making the real friends that I have today. Um, and I'm also going to talk about, kind of how I dealt with the time where I didn't really have a lot of friends. So, you know, during middle school or elementary, middle school, you know, I was, I had a military family and we moved around quite a bit. So I was really good at the beginning parts of getting to know people, talking to people that I wasn't really um, familiar with talking to. But as far as like actually making lasting friendships, I wasn't really the best. I hadn't been in an area long enough to like really get to know somebody well enough to like make a true, lasting friendship. Um, and that's so I mean that's kind of my background. So elementary school, I had friends. Middle school, I made friends, and I made friends with a group which you would call the preps and the popular kids, the kids that like later on went to go wear Hollister and Abercrombie and Fitch and like actually cared about what you were wearing, and but they weren't. When you're in elementary, middle school, it's pretty easy to be friends with pretty much anybody. You can just walk up and talk to them, and it's pretty easy to be friends. But as time went on, I got to high school. Uh, I had you know all the people that I was talking to did hang out with because I didn't go out and I didn't buy the fancy clothes and I didn't go and basically become everything that they deemed that I was supposed to become. I kind of lost those friends, and I'm using the term friends loosely because it turns out that they weren't actually friends. They were just people that I went to school with, and you know I hung out with at school. A friend is someone who will not just leave at the drop of the hat just because you're not wearing the cool clothes and you're not doing the thing that they deem as acceptable. A friend's somebody who's going to be there and who's going to have your back. And I guess I didn't truly have a grasp of this at this point, but this was my first sense of like really huge rejection was in high school, and on a large scale, I was deemed not not on the in crowd and not popular, and no longer was like I guess warranted or allowed to hang out with these people that I was basically these were the only people I'd invested in having any relationship with, and I was kind of shunned from that group. And a lot of people, what would have happened is they would have said, okay, well, let me go find other friends and let me try to make friends with them, and I'll just be accepted within that group. And I had kind of an odd and or odd reaction, in which my reaction was, no, I'm not going to go ahead and invest in people. I can do it on my own, and you know, I don't really need people to affirm that I'm awesome, and I can go it alone and not really worry about what other people think. Which really gave me a unique perspective. So I was sort of became this, self-proclaimed loner, and I mean, at times it was really, really lonely. Like I remember, there was one time where I was sitting at a table with one other person, and they were in a similar situation I was, where nobody would talk to them, and they were kind of on the on the outcast of society. And we talked and we got along, but we became close, but it was kind of out of necessity. So we weren't. Once again, it was somebody I talked to and was an acquaintance with, but really truly didn't make that friendship connection. Um, so, I went through this process of just being the self-proclaimed loner, and I made, when I started working in high school, I started making more friends. I actually met my wife at my first job, and you know, I met her and I was dating her, and of course she is one of the best friends that you can ever have is your wife. But when I say talking about friends, I'm talking about friends out of a significant other, outside of a significant other, because I love my wife and she's the best friend that I could ever have. But you know, I'm talking about friends outside of that. So when I was working, I had these acquaintances, people that I really got along with, and I really, you know, could talk to and relate to at work. But I guess I didn't really like. They still, once again, were not people that they weren't sticking around. So they were just, you know, they were just in my life for one moment and then gone the next. And you know, that was fine for me. Actually, for a long time, I thought that that's actually how friendship worked. Is you have somebody who comes into your life, and I actually explained this to a lot of people that I knew during this time, that you have people that come into your life during a certain time, and they're there for a certain purpose, and they're great when you have them there, but if and when the time comes and they're no longer in your life, you know, you'll always have the times that you had and you spent with them, but you know, that'll be good too, that they moved on, and you know, you can move on and, you know, make your own friends. And I think that was something that I actually thought that, you know, friends just came and went, but true friends, you know, they don't. They grow on you like family. So it's kind of like building a giant family, and true friends won't just leave. They just stick around, regardless of whether you want them to. So fast forward a little bit, I start college, and my wife has gone away to a different college, and I've sort of stayed local in this small town that's now not as small, but was small at the time that I was living in. And so she's away, and she actually goes through the process of making friends, because she never really made that decision to be this self-proclaimed loner, and she's much better at making friends than I have, and she actually goes out and successfully makes friends, and I become really envious of it. And I kind of spiral down into this sort of pseudo depression like state of like, oh my god, she's got all these friends, all these great friends that are around her all the time, and she's having a blast at college, and I've got nobody here. And you know, the first year of college was rough for me. And anyway, you know, besides the fact that I didn't have friends, I didn't do very well. But, you know, I started freaking out, thinking, you know, how abnormal I was, because for the first time ever, my wife actually showed me what true friends were supposed to be like. And it was, what she had was awesome. And I was really, truly envious of it. And I wanted it so badly. But it, you know, just didn't happen. It didn't happen when it thought it should be. So, fast forward a little bit forward. I'm going to tell you guys about my experience of making my first true friend, which is a guy that I actually play a lot with. You'll probably see him in some Let's Plays. His username is Hag, and he is really my friend in real life. And it's not I just don't play video games with him. You know, I've worked with the guy twice. You know, we still hang out all the time. You know, we've been together, you know, through thick and thin. He's an awesome guy, and you couldn't ask for a better friend. But I kind of ran into this guy my freshman year. He was going through a pretty tough time because of some things that were going on in his life, and I can't really divulge into those. It's not my place, but he and I both ended up failing the same class, and we were in there, and you know, he was a guy who failed a class, I was a guy who failed a class, and I didn't really think anything of it. So, you know, freshman year passes by, and I've only had one encounter with this guy, and he's failed this class. Sophomore year comes by, and here's the same guy, and he's, you know, we get paired up, of course. There can be one pair of three because, you know, the class was uneven, and I wanted to be in that pair of three, and then somebody else wanted to be in that pair of three. So, of course, one of us had to break, and it ended up being me, but there was Philip. Damn it. Hag. His real name is Philip, sorry. And Hag was, you know, basically begging for, you know, he's like, hey, you know, nobody wants to work with me? Really? Come on, somebody work with me. And So eventually I felt bad for the guy, and I was like, he was failing, and I was kind of apprehensive about working with him because I was like, I was failing too, and I was thinking, what are we going to do when we put 2 weak people in a group together? Well, we ended up working together on this project. We were one of 2 groups to actually finish it, and ever since then we started getting along really well, and we started hanging out, and it was at that point that we both realized we had a lot more in common, in the sense that, one, we went to the same school, B, we were now commuting. We were both commuting students. And C, that both of our girlfriends at the time, my wife now and his fiance, went to the same college. And we both had made trips up there. So what we decided to do at that point was we started working together in classes. We started driving up together to go see the girlfriends at JMU. And generally, he and I would just compete at everything. I'm a pretty competitive person. He was a pretty competitive person. And, we would compete at everything. Every class we had, we were testing to see who could do better. And I guess, slowly over time in these, as we're competing in class and we're talking and getting along and just having, it wasn't ever forced. It was just something really, fluid, having interactions with this guy. And so having those interactions in school and having those interactions in the car while we're, outside of school and just in our personal life, really bonded us in a way that, is very odd. I'd never had this type of friendship before. There was one time I remember we were going over the mountain, and because there was a mountain in between us, me and Hag and the girlfriends, and we broke down, and we were sitting in this car and we were playing Quap. And I don't know if you guys have ever played Quap, but it's a stupid game where you get this stupid guy with all types of different disorders to run across this track, and it's impossible. You can do it, but it's God. It's painful. And I remember just sitting in the car, just, loving every moment of being broken down, waiting for my girlfriend, now my wife, to come pick us up. And she was pretty upset because I think that was actually the weekend before finals, but, I had a blast, he had a blast, and, it was crazy the amount of just, fun we were having while we were sitting on the side of the road broken down. And there were other times that we went back and, one of the girlfriends would be riding with us, and I was actually somewhat irritated that they were kind of intruding on this time that, I was having with this person who, wasn't my girlfriend, but, I enjoyed spending time with him alone, and it was somewhat irritating to be in that position. So anyway, I kind of digressed there a little bit into talking about our mountain rides over to the girls' school. But, later in our relationship, he had a job, I had a job, but I still had that first job that I met my now wife at. And his job paid better, had better hours, and was going to be, better for my school. And he went ahead and made the decision to put his neck out there for me. And he said, hey, he went to his boss and he said, hey, this guy's he's going to be a good position for this, it's going to be good for this position, and he's a hard worker, and I think you should give him a shot. And that spoke, volumes to me. And I later repaid that because, I got an internship with a company I work with now, and he got an internship with a different company, and they dropped him. And I talked to my boss, and I stuck my neck out, and I said, look, this guy's in a really bad spot. He couldn't, he might not be able to graduate. Can we help him? And my boss said, yeah, we'll give him a shot. And I stuck my neck back out for him, and they, once again, he's a good guy, so he came through, flying colors. But, he's probably one of the only people I would actually go out on a limb and say, this guy's a guy you can count on. This is a guy who's going to do whatever you need him to do, regardless of what it is, when it needs to be done. If it, you know, he's a hard worker, and he just is what he is. It's, you know, it's not a lie. It's not exaggeration. He's a great friend. He'll do anything, you know. He's got my back multiple times, all the time. And you know, I can say I got the same for him. Now I've made other friends since then. I haven't really gotten as close to those other friends as I ever have with him, and I consider them friends. They might end up being acquaintances. They might end up fading out of my life at some point. I don't think Hag ever will. We seem to be somewhat bonded in almost every aspect of our lives, but yeah, I mean, I've made other friends and they're close, and you know, but making that first one was the biggest step for me in actually learning how to interact with people. And he taught me a lot about socially interacting with other people, and you know, just characteristics I didn't have as being a loner. But I gotta say that being a loner is not the solution, and you know, after going through and being that loner, and you shouldn't never, when you're in that alone time, it's pretty miserable. And I know there's probably some of you out there that have had and experienced that time where you don't have a lot of friends and you're sitting there alone and you don't really have anybody to share that time with. But what I will say is, you know, don't give up. Just keep going out there and don't get jaded like I did early on. Go out there and make the friends. Because that alone time's tough to deal with. You got nothing to do, nobody to talk to, nobody to share your time. I suppose that's it for this video. I just kind of wanted to go through and talk some about what it's like to make the friends, or to make friends, and how my process of making friends was like for me, and what that process was like. And you know, if you have any questions or comments or you know, anything like that about what it's like to make friends for the first time, please put them in the comment section. You know, and as always, I really appreciate you guys coming back to the video and watching. It means the world. You know, I actually got 4 subscribers, and I think some of those might be friends from work, friends elsewhere, and like when I actually saw that I had subscribers, it was awesome, and I really appreciate it. So, love to see you guys come back. I'd love to talk about some more stuff. Until then, I'll see you next time.